It is 7 o'clock, according to my iPhone, which is usually pretty close. Welcome everybody to the Town of Chelmsford Planning Board meeting of March 22nd, 2023. We are on Zoom, as a matter of fact. We have a full board, but half of them are on Zoom. Town Attorney Paul Haverty is also on Zoom. We're, of course, being recorded. I presume we're being recorded because the audio's on. So with that, let's get the meeting underway. It's going to be fairly short tonight. First thing to do, even before the public input, is I've got a little board business to take care of. We have one member who is definitely not going to be here at the next meeting. That's Nancy Arroway, who is not running for re-election. Congratulations. So, in honor of that, and the fact that you have been around here for, good God, 12 years.
It's a long time.
A long time. I would like to award you that could come in handy. Mind if I step a little farther away?
You didn't want to do this.
Thank you very much for 12 years on the planning board. That's a pretty
It's
good
engraved,
term.
it's personalized.
Yeah.
I see.
Name.
You can't get
And my fingerprints are now on it.
Yes. Thank you very much for 12 years. And
Service.
you can watch us on TV now and, pop open a Frosty while you're doing it. Thank you very much. Okay, next up, we will take public input. I think I see three people here. You all know the rules on public input. Does anybody have anything for the public input session?
You might want to
I don't see-
reiterate the rules.
Yeah, it's
anybody out
basically
there.
it's basically for anything that's not on the agenda and pertains in a general way to planning board business. But is there anybody raising their hand on Zoom?
No.
Okay, and that's it for public input. Next up is just administrative review for 250 Apollo Drive. As you recall, we approved that project, and Evan has drafted up a decision for us. You will also recall that one of the conditions of that was that we get some letters documenting a couple of things, and we have the letters. I don't know, are they short enough to read, or is it?
They're short.
Okay, why don't you give them a read?
Okay. From the Water Department, dear board members, the Chelmsford Center Water District has reviewed draft plans submitted for 250 Apollo Drive. After reviewing of our records and time on site, we cannot confirm that the water main loops behind the existing building and shown in the drafted plans. Revisions have been made to the drafted plan if and when confirmation of water main exists. See attached markup. And the second one is from the town engineer. DPW has been in communication with the applicant of 250 Apollo Drive regarding their participation in the sewer capacity credit transfer policy. DPW will work via the sewer capacity credit transfer policy for 250 Apollo Drive to acquire the additional capacity of 2,316 gallons per day. Sewer calculations are as follows. Sewer removal through the sewer capacity credit transfer policy calculations should be as follows. Total sewer flow rate of addition, 1,658 gallons per day. Allowable increase to the sewer, 500 gallons per day. 1,658 minus 500 equals 1,158 gallons per day. 1 GPD of new flow credit is given for every 2 GPD of approved I/I removed from the system. Total GPD removal required 2,316 GPD prior to occupancy. Sincerely, Anthony Rapucci, PE.
Okay.
I don't get it, but
Question for,
okay.
yeah.
I
Question,
don't understand either of those
Me
letters.
too. Thank you.
I think the second
I'm
one
the
I
same
get,
with
but
you.
the first one I want to get some idea of
Well,
what the ramifications
The first
are.
one said that the water district, well, my understanding of the
Yeah.
first one, because frankly, I thought it was strange too.
Obtuse.
Obtuse.
Obtuse
That's
is a
good
good
word.
term.
But my understanding of it is that the water district didn't know where their mains were running,
Yeah,
and they requested some revisions to the draft plan in terms of where water was to be run, where the water lines were to
Okay.
be run.
Is
And
that-
they said, see
yeah.
the attached markup,
which we haven't got a copy of here.
which
Have you-
So
I'm
that's a
sure
fair
is in the-
assessment. There was a follow-up email in which the applicant had asked the district specifically whether they were okay with the planning board approving tonight.
Yeah.
And the reply was yes.
Okay, that's what I
So
wanted
they're-
to verify.
The district is likely going to work out the details in the field
Did we
as
get
far
that
as
copy of that?
locating a water main.
Okay, but that's well within their purview and their understanding and knowledge, so they can
Do we have a
take
copy
care
of
of it.
that?
I can forward it to the board.
Okay.
That would be great. We should probably put that in
Yeah,
in
well,
the records.
it'll certainly be in the record.
Yeah.
Evan, is that in the
Please.
files?
Yeah, I will put it in the files.
All right.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Okay, the second one, running through the numbers.
I get the
They're
numbers.
just gonna have to hit that number, if not, they can't
But
occupy.
how are they,
Right.
I don't understand where that extra
Like, is there-
2316 is gonna come from.
That's what I don't
They're-
Well,
they're-
understand.
that's what that whole credit policy.
Yeah, they
credit
intend to get it
transfer
through the credit
policy
policy.
That they've put
They're
in
banking
place is
on
all
that they're
about.
not gonna use water.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
this is Jim with Civil Design, I'm the civil engineer for the project.
yeah,
If I could just have one moment. So, as Evan indicated, we did get a email response from the water district saying they have no further comments with the project, and I just want to make sure I got my words right. Hi, Jim, I have no other issues to address for the project. That was in response to me specifically saying, I understand that we have a plan inconsistency, the planning board is looking for a formal letter. And that was the email response I get back. As far as the DPW, we got an email last Thursday, and it says, "Hi Jim, I think acknowledgement of the 2-6 letter, recommended capacity and commitment to participate in the sewer credit transfer policy is what we would need. I do not think I need to provide a letter following that letter, since coordination would be handled directly with DPW. After our meeting 2 weeks ago tonight, I reached out to Water, DPW, asked them for these letters. This is what they provided, and I can tell you that based on my conversations, we're all on the same page. We'll address whatever minor adjustment needs to be made for consistency between our plans and water. And we've committed to the sewer transfer credit policy at a fee somewhere between $30 and $50 per gallon per day.
okay.
So that's a payment in lieu of.
That's correct.
That'll go to that program we were talking about.
Yeah. Okay,
So wait a
Okay.
minute, who manages that program? Is that the DPW?
Correct.
DPW
So
manages.
do we have a sign off from, and that's from the DPW?
Yes,
Yes.
Yeah, and they said here that they'd work via that credit transfer policy to get them the capacity.
yep.
Okay, and what happens if we can't do that?
Well, they don't get an occupancy permit if they haven't
Okay.
made that, so I can have a beautiful building and nobody can use it.
But that's occupancy, not before
That's
construction.
occupancy, yes. That's my understanding. Does that sound correct, Evan?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
The challenge is that the policy isn't completely formalized.
Yeah, I understand.
But goodwill, we're gonna move forward with everything because we like the project, we want the project, and we're agreeing to the parameters of it.
Understood,
Okay,
understood. Thank you.
I just feel like I mean, I'm fine with all that, except that I don't really understand where, I understand that money's gonna change hands, that is the value of 2,316 gallons a day, but I don't understand where the 2,316 gallons a day capacity, like who's finding that and how, and who gets to decide where it gets
The
allocated?
DPW.
All
So
that.
they have a variety of programs. One is reducing I&I, which is inflow and infiltration. And as Paul McDougall mentioned earlier, I think before the meeting started, one of those programs will be offering assistance to single-family homeowners that have sump pumps that are tied into the municipal system. That's low-hanging fruit. So the funding that comes in as a PILO, DPW will use
Yep.
to advance those programs.
Compensate those.
Exactly, yeah.
To build that capacity.
Sounds like a pretty good,
Okay.
That's low-hanging fruit. There's also other options to create additional capacity that are more expensive. But the model that we're talking about this evening is a 2-to-1. So for every gallon that they put in, they have to remove 2 gallons.
Right. Or they have to pay to have
Yep,
2
right.
gallons removed.
Yeah.
Correct.
right. Okay,
Okay.
So can I see copies of the letters? Because I just need to, sorry.
They were,
visual.
they were addended to the agenda today.
Today.
Yeah,
Yesterday.
or yesterday.
Yesterday,
I
yeah.
saw them today.
Okay. So I haven't had a chance because
okay.
I have a full-time job.
Yeah,
So if I go to the agenda that was sent,
I actually went to the town website when I was looking for the agenda to look for the minutes
thank you.
and saw the letters then.
yeah.
I didn't know how long they had been there.
So both of those letters are referenced in the draft
Yes.
decision. And then there's a special condition, number 2, that specifically speaks to the applicant continuing to work with DPW to finalize the requirements in order to be able to tie into the municipal sewer system.
Okay. Any of our board members out there in Zoom land have a comment? Nobody?
I don't have any comments right now. You've answered everything so far.
Okay. All right. I have reviewed the draft decision. I found, I think, exactly one typo.
Where was that again?
I think I sent you an email about
You
it
did, yeah.
several weeks ago. It was a,
Yeah, it was-
one letter
It was
in one word.
generally, I think, was the term.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll
But that
find
was
it.
it, and that's been resolved. And I see you don't have the PB file number on this draft copy, but I
Correct.
presume that will
Yeah. Yes, it will.
get inserted properly. Okay, any more commentary on this? Otherwise,
One thing I would
Yep.
say that is interesting, I think worth noting, is that the, once the plan to formalize this arrangement is finalized, then it would seem that the people who are gonna get in on the beginning, like the first couple businesses that get that capacity will have an easier time generating the 2-for-1. Is that right? So then will the price go up for the PILO if it becomes less low-hanging
It
fruit?
likely could. The range right now is based upon Weston and Sampson estimates is between 30 and 50. So my understanding is DPW is using 40
I see.
as the initial buy-in. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That number could change over time.
good. Okay, any other thoughts? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the draft as written.
Motion to approve the draft as written.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion, a second. In favor? Aye. We have 4 here,
Aye.
Head count.
5. Mike?
Aye.
Okay, we
I'm
got Tim.
against.
Did we get,
Mike's and I.
Mike's and I, okay, okay,
6 originally voted in favor.
okay,
Yeah, I'm against because I just don't understand this sewer capacity.
okay, 6-1.
And I would have liked to have a little bit more clarity on that they were comfortable with it and we should move forward.
Okay, next item up is 264 Groton Road. They've requested a continuance again. I'm not against granting him a continuance, but I'm curious to know if we have any information as to why.
They're still working on getting a compliant Lot 1 determination from the building commissioner.
Okay, okay.
Has to do with the lot depth.
Okay, they're still working on the lot depth problem.
Correct.
Okay, good.
Okay.
All right, then I guess we'll leave that. That will be for the next board, which is going to have at least 2 new members.
Motion to continue, 264 Groton Road to April 12th,
7 PM.
7 PM.
I'll second that.
We have a motion, a second, in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 1, 2,
Aye.
3, 4, Mike's and I. Tim?
Aye.
6?
Aye.
7, okay, 7 zip. So that's continued. Okay, next up is new business, and we're going to have some discussion of the open meeting law problems that we bumped into. I think I'll start out by describing as best I can, and Evan and Paul, by the way, Paul Haverty's on the line as well. You guys pipe in with any additional details that you have. But basically, there is a strong likelihood that we had an open meeting violation. We don't know for sure, and we can't find anybody to tell us for sure. It turns out that the ethics office doesn't handle this. That's where you would, for most other things, we would go to get a quick opinion. And it turns out the AG's office doesn't either. And we tried to self-report this. Paul, my understanding is that there just wasn't anybody to take the self-report. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the way the process works with the Attorney General's office, it's the Division of Open Government. And if there is a party that believes that a local board committed an open meeting law violation, they have the right to contact the Division of Open Government, file a notice of a claim that there was a violation. And then they actually have to go back to the board, and the board has to provide a response. And if the person that's claiming the violation is satisfied with that response, that ends the process with the Division of Open Government. So after we had this discussion back in end of February, and I had recommended that the board self-report this to the Division of Open Government, I did contact them, sort of laid out exactly what the scenario was. And the response was that they don't have a process for accepting self-reporting. What they did recommend was that the board address the issues that had been raised, and make sure that it, takes proper steps to ensure that they don't reoccur. So that is sort of the purpose for the discussion tonight, is to, again, clarify what occurred, what process will occur in the future to prevent this from reoccurring, and ultimately just address any concerns that anybody may have with regard to this.
We don't know for absolute sure that it's a violation, but I think for, after discussions with Paul, let's treat it as if it was. I think we have to treat it as if it was. In all likelihood, it was. So let's just assume that it was and take steps based on that. Let's not, rather than try to argue about whether it was or it wasn't. I believe it was last meeting or two meetings ago when the issue first came up, we took an initial action of saying, okay, as a matter of board policy, we're not going to have any more than one board member meet with any party in a situation similar to what we ran into with Davis Corporation. And that's I think, a good first step. But we need to have a longer conversation about this. And my thoughts there are twofold. First of all, we probably want to have that conversation when we have the new board members on, because we're going to have at least 2, potentially 3 new board members next meeting. And these people need to be involved in the discussion. We've taken an initial step, which I think will, it's certainly going to keep us from running into this in the next 6 months. And that's what I would suggest that we do. And I'd ask, Evan, you can put it on the agenda for the next meeting as a work session, and then all of the new members can be part of that conversation, and they can give some information. They can also perhaps learn a little bit. The second thing I want to bring up here is beyond the particulars of the situation that we ran into with Davis, which were unfortunate, but it wasn't for lack of asking the question that we took the wrong step. The question did get asked before the meeting occurred. Just signals got crossed and we didn't get an answer that would keep us out of trouble. But beyond that particular problem of a serial meeting, an open meeting, we have other situations that come up. There's nothing in the open meeting law that I see that says anything about the organization or the people or the group you were dealing with was proponents. We can run into similar kinds of problems with opponents. And particularly in the last project, River Neck, and to some considerable degree in the one before that, West Campus, there was a great deal of contact by individuals to board members. I mean, I got stopped at the supermarket. I got stopped on the street. I don't know how many conversations with some of the people that are sitting here now on the way out of meetings. Now, it never ever occurred to me that we run into a situation where openness and transparency are not the same thing. But in fact, they're not. And we need to be careful individually and as a group that we don't, in the name of openness, create situations that might lead us into something that looked like a serial board meeting. Now, I know back when I first got onto this board, and we had a couple of fairly hardliners, George Zaharoulis. Hello, George. He's probably watching. And Anne McGuigan, unfortunately, is not watching, or at least she's not watching on CTV. She passed away some years ago. But both of them were fairly strong sticklers on if somebody comes up to you and talks to you about a matter like River Neck, like West Campus, or any other matter that's before us, that your best answer is, thank you, put it in writing if you can, bring it up at the meeting. I don't really want to talk about details. And as the more I reflect on that, the more I think that was probably the right way to go. Now, we went fairly over that line on River Neck, I know, because I had the conversations with opponents. And I think going forward, we probably ought to think pretty hard about what our contacts are to anybody, proponent, opponent, news media, anybody, about a matter that's before the board or potentially before the board. And I would suggest that be a topic, a part of the conversation to be had at the next board meeting with all the new members in place.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. I thought you might, and you had some good ideas initially when we talked about some of this.
Well, I also have been thinking about this because, I mean, I got involved in this board, as have other people here, because of an interest in a particular project, that being the project in the center of town. And I talked to a number of, I mean, I spoke at meetings, but I also spoke one-on-one with a number of members
Yeah.
on the board, as did my husband. And so, if, people weren't telling me what they thought necessarily, but they were listening to me and they were talking. So
Yeah.
I think that was crossing the, I mean, I would have been very unhappy if people would have responded to me and said, I'm sorry, I can't talk about that, in feeling that I was being stonewalled. But I think it's probably at least as difficult. And, I don't know how many of us went up and wandered around West Campus with Helen de Blasio. And
What was that?
Well, remember, there are very specific rules and policies that we try to apply when we have a site walk.
no, we walked
Paul,
around.
can you walk?
Yeah, we did. That was a
Can you
site
go
walk.
The
through,
sidewalk. We did
like,
a posted
what,
meeting
how far, and what,
It was posted though.
It was
like, when
posted.
dealing with the public, how,
Yeah.
like, what the rules are?
I'm sorry, Anita, can you start that question again?
Sure. Do you mind just kind of, going a little bit into depth about the open meeting law and what the rules are when someone does approach you and tells you what they think? Likewise, if they send you an email and the
So-
discussion versus taking stuff in?
The problem is, any one individual member having a conversation with a proponent, an opponent, an interested person, whatever it may be, in and of itself does not lead to an open meeting law violation, because there can be no deliberation if there's only one person. The problem is if that proponent or opponent goes to multiple other board members and has essentially the same conversation, could potentially lead to a claim of serial deliberation. And the problem, the board members, individually, because they're not supposed to be talking to each other about conversations they've had regarding the project, wouldn't necessarily know that these individuals have come up to them and had this conversation.
problem.
They wouldn't be aware, that they shouldn't engage in this discussion. So I do think that the chair's point is well taken, that really it's advisable to avoid this type of conversation, even though it's not technically on its own a violation. When aggregated with other conversations, it would lead to a potential violation.
And there's clearly a heightened sensitivity at this point.
Do other towns go through this? Are other towns going through this?
I'm sure they are in various forms. I know this open meetings issues pop up all the time. Yeah, I know you probably have some kind of good report that tells you when it's happening.
I mean, you can go onto the Division of Open Government and look at their their listed
We have
decisions
a list of open
Yeah.
cases.
Sure.
There's quite a few.
for serial deliberation.
And it would
Get
be
a-
like comparable, like one at a time and deliberate. Any of those cases, do you think?
So I haven't looked at the one at a time thing. I mean, I think the issue is more likely to occur in the situation similar to what happened with the River Neck Road, which was there were multiple members, but less than a quorum, meeting, with a developer, and then a different subgroup meeting with a developer. That's the more likely situation where that would happen, but I can't say that there hasn't been circumstances where it's been one either proponent or opponent meeting with multiple members individually that ultimately resulted in a serial deliberation.
I would also point out that in situations where you have an organized group opposing a project, which we very clearly had with Riverneck, and to some degree we had some organized groups also with West Campus, it may not simply be one person talking to one person. There may be more behind it. There may be three people in a group, and one of them talks to board member A, one of them talks to board member B, one talks to board member C. We're beginning to get into the space where there could be problems and issues. So I would
And again,
suggest,
those board members.
Yeah, they would never know.
Those other conversations occurred because they shouldn't be talking amongst each other about.
now, one thing we could do, and this I think is a good subject for more complete discussion next meeting, would be if board members have contact like that, they simply pop an email to Evan and say, this happened, and we keep an eye on it. If you start seeing a pattern develop, then we can raise a red flag. You know, I really hate
So is it?
to not be open.
Yeah, no, I just want a clarification, though. Is it deliberation, talking to them, or is it listening to them that is causing the trigger here?
It
So
could
like
be
if
the-
someone came
It
in,
could be the inference that you're doing it.
Yeah.
But
but if
you know what
someone
I
says,
mean?
come and look at I want you to come to my house and see how close this is.
Yeah,
And you
like I
go
did.
and look,
Like I did.
and walk to someone's house
We've all
and
done
looked
that.
at how close something is that a violation? Because you're not deliberating, you're just observe, like
Well-
you're looking or walking. I don't know what you guys did
That's
at
not
West Camp
itself
Hill.
a violation, but it may be a precursor or a part
Okay,
of a
well-
violation, depending on how many people are involved.
So if multiple members go, then that would be a violation?
Yeah, if like
So
three
if
of us.
multiple members are going to visit a site, it should be noticed as a site visit.
Yes.
Okay, so it should be like a site visit? Okay.
But
So
if
going to West
multiple people are
Campus,
going to a
People
site
went to the
on
house the
their
other
own
I guess we're in
at different
violation.
times, that's, I mean.
And that should not be a problem as long as they don't have somebody there actually providing them information.
Well, no, the person, I mean, in
the
the
homeowner.
case of
Information is
Northwest
the
Campus
site.
and the case of Monmouth, it was opponents inviting us to see the view or whatever, but also speaking while we were there. And, you know, in both cases, I went, but then later also found out other people went and did the same thing at a different
Yeah.
time.
So we're in violation all the time.
Well, no, that's not necessarily violation. The problem here, guys, is we're looking for a bright line. There isn't any bright line.
well, I like, well, for
We know
instance,
some
every
things that
time
are and
something
some that
comes
aren't.
up on the planning board here,
Yep.
I always drive by the site. So now you're.
Well, driving
No,
by the
that's
site and taking
not-
a look
that's
without
different
talking to
than
anybody,
taking
Another
their
person
that's
there.
what-
Right,
input.
so
But-
there's clearly there's no problems associated with actually going by yourself, visiting a site, engaging in no conversation with any party. That's never gonna be a violation.
Yeah.
You do have the right to actually, gather your own evidence.
And most of us do. I mean, when it's a big project, I drive by there to see what it looks like.
Of course.
Yeah, and that's okay.
But when you're holding a site visit, it should be noticed.
Posted.
And
Yeah.
it should be posted, and you're also not allowed to actually engage in substantive discussions with any party as part of that site visit. The only information that you're allowed to take is really sort of directional. This is where the structure will be. This is where the access way is coming in. This is where the property lines are. That information is okay, but anything, beyond that should be done as part of, the public hearing, not as part of the site.
Yeah, I've always looked at it as if you have a drawing in front of you, having somebody point out where the points on the drawing are is quite
That's
okay.
okay.
But when they start telling you about how they're going to move the points around or make adjustments or do things like that, it gets murkier. Now, Nancy, I'm sorry, you had a question and I wanted to let you in.
No, actually, I had a comment. The more that I've listened to you on this, what I'm realizing, these are public hearings. And the key word here is a hearing. We are, in essence, a jury.
Yeah.
And like any other jury, any discussion outside of the formal of public evaluation is a contamination of the
Yeah.
process.
Yep.
And I think we really do need to consider that anything we engage in with anyone else outside of this room contaminates the process and should be considered as a violation of open meeting law.
Well, it should be certainly considered
Well,
contrary to the policy of the board. Whether it's open meeting violation or not is up to the AG and the laws of the Commonwealth.
Right, it doesn't need to violate open meeting law to violate whatever policy you decide.
Right.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
May I suggest at this point, I mean, I think we've got some good points out on the table. Can we put this on the next meeting as work session? And perhaps, I mean, I'll certainly try to draft up a set of 3 or 4 or 5 bullet points that we probably ought to cover. If it's okay with you, Paul, I'll run it by you, run it by Evan, and Evan, you can send it to the rest of the board, and then we can, then you can discuss. I mean, who knows? I may be in luck. I may not even be on the board.
Paul, you'll be here the next meeting then, during the work session?
When is the next meeting?
The 12th, isn't it?
Yes.
My calendar.
And then I just have a question, speaking of policies.
Yes.
Where are all our policies? And how do we access this? I assume they're written someplace.
I will send them out to you.
Can we put them on like
I
on
can
the
add
planning
them
board,
to the
the website?
website, yeah.
Yeah,
That would
that'd be
good.
great.
That would be really good. Thank you.
You may want to review them before we put them up there.
Actually, you know, I like that too. Why don't you send it out to the board?
some
We'll
of
all,
them-
give us
some of
all a
them-
week to read them.
Yeah, I mean, some of them may be applicable,
Yeah.
and others you may not want to be applicable.
Okay.
Because it's only, like, I went online to look for policies, and I saw 2 policies that seemed really outdated online, and that was all there was.
Yeah.
So I was
Well,
kind of
let's-
looking,
let's
we keep
clean that
saying,
up.
yeah, we keep saying there are policies out, let's put this on the policies, do the policy, but I don't see the written policy.
They're individual, they were individual
Maybe
Yeah.
we ought to
Not
consider gathering them
codified
together in one.
together, right?
No, that's fine,
So,
but like,
for example, back in February 22nd, you guys made a motion to adopt the policy.
Yeah. Well, let me make a point there. I'm on the board of another organization that not quite as large as the town of Chelmsford, but pretty darn close. We got about a $17 million budget annually, and we have run into this problem of having policies all over the darn place and not having them collected. And we have eventually. A couple of board members volunteered to actually go through the whole set, number them, list them, get them in one place, and that probably would be a very good thing for us to do, so that we have one.
I'll send them out, you probably have maybe.
I have them
less than a
all
half a
over the
dozen.
place, but I think we should probably gather them up so that so they're easier to
we should probably
transmit.
just go through them and,
Yeah,
I mean.
and we're
ideally-
going to find that some of the stuff's completely out of date, and
That's fine,
can
but we
dump
should
it.
just have it, and then once
Yeah.
we finalize it, just put it out there, even if it's
I-
on a SharePoint site that we can all accept,
Yeah.
access.
I would agree.
So then, well, if we're moving on, I just
And
want
I
to,
am available on the 12th, by the way.
Okay,
Great.
well, consider yourself invited.
Thank you.
So do you want to start that meeting early? Do the work
What
session?
does
and-
what does our workload look like for the next meeting?
You'll have 2 new hearings, the Lighthouse School will be opening, and 18-20 Chelmsford Street will be opening.
Okay, what 1820 is this?
Is Sergeant's property.
Okay, yeah, I know the one.
Yep. Lighthouse School is an addition. You have the continuation of 264 Groton, which I expect will likely be resolved by then.
Okay, so we'll have a modest meeting. It shouldn't be a killer. I mean, Lighthouse School, because they are a school, as I understand it, they may have some relief from zoning provisions. I don't know. They a private school? I guess they're private.
yeah.
I don't know.
Special
Educational-
dispensation.
Yeah, educational institutions,
a
public
straightforward
ones,
application.
are pretty much.
Actually, you want to start at 7, or you want to do 6:30?
Well, I presumably will not be the chair except for the purpose of opening the meeting and electing a new chair, if I'm even there. So,
Paul, are you available at 6:30 if the board chooses?
Ma'am, yes.
let's do it at 6. Let's start it at 6:30 then.
That work?
Works for me.
And then we'll also reorg will be.
Yeah, there will be a
We need
then
to
we'll
do
reorg
reorg.
it, and then we'll get to the business
Also
at
on the
hand.
agenda, yeah.
Okay.
I just want to say one more thing, which is that I would like to personally apologize for at least having the impression of violating the open meeting law. And, it's my hope that we'll figure out how to prevent that from
Well,
happening
I mean,
again.
I don't think you owe an apology. You actually flagged it, and we got the question in, and it was really miscommunication after you applied the question and before the meeting occurred. So there's certainly no
Nonetheless,
deep fault in your part. I think everybody regrets it. I don't think there's any question that we regret that happened. And that, at least, isn't going to happen again. I imagine we'll find some other pothole to fall in, but it won't be that one. Okay. That's that. Liaison updates. I haven't got a lot of liaison updating to report, but I will say that the master plan committee had one good meeting. We'll have another one coming up. I don't remember what the date is.
May 17th.
May 17th. But before the end of the year, the master plan committee will be discussing some of the initiatives that are in the master plan that are within the particular purview of the planning board. So some review of the planning board related items should be done. Now, it doesn't have to be done in May. I think we're probably talking November before we get to that. I don't remember exactly what our schedule is.
But you should make some progress
But
on
we
them
should make
before
some
that.
we actually have done some on the zoning changing. We actually had a hearing on that, but we need to go down the list and find out where we can put in some energy, and particularly see if we can find some low hanging fruit. And move that along, because I really would like to see the master plan
Implementation.
Well, it's actually right now it is being managed better. I think the implementation committee that we have now is doing a bang up job. There's some really good people on it, and they're not messing around. Okay.
Do we have anything else that we need to do pertaining to the zoning prior to town meeting, or are we all?
Well, I had sent out an email. Tomorrow night is FinCom.
Yeah, I was going to go to FinCom if I can.
So Brian Reedy, the chair of the ZBA, will be joining me.
And
obviously
I'll
the-
come just to wave the planning board flag.
Okay.
I'll
thank
try
you.
and go as well, but do we, outside of attending their meeting, do we have anything else that we need to do? Or are we
You'll
all-
we'll be doing the same thing for the select board after the election. Then there's pre-town meeting, and
Okay.
then the actual town meeting.
But what stands is what we're doing. There's nothing else.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, after the elections, at some point when the board's ready, we can have an agenda item to discuss, what we may want to target for fall. The only one that I'm aware of that I've mentioned to you is the floodplain bylaw. Needs to be updated.
Yep. Okay. Any other committee liaison work?
The CPC met, I don't know if it was since the last meeting, but there's a number of projects, being brought forth at town meeting for funding, mostly for open space, and none of them were at all controversial. I think they'll,
Yeah, I actually was at one of their meetings. Actually got a very small grant. It's below the level that goes to town meeting, but it's going to fund some an electric drop up at Watton Street, so we can so the gardens up there can have electric pumps and automate the pump system.
NEMCOG,
Yeah.
MBTA guidelines, I guess they would call it, are actually punitive now. They're not
a suggestion.
And not a suggestion, no. So it has to be done. It
Yeah.
has to be done.
Well, I think we've identified areas in town that could be properly zoned.
Yeah, I think we're in good shape.
Yeah, I think we're
we're in good shape. But it's just funny that now
Yeah.
it's punitive.
And NIMCOG, as you recall, NIMCOG is finalizing the contract to assist the planning board and the community over the next year. So that
Great.
they'll likely be in front of you to present the scope and have a
Excellent.
discussion with you
Excellent.
about expectations and process.
Yep.
The Board of Health, they have their new permitting software, is now online. They're also doing all their inspections, using iPads. And I think they're able to visit, able to get through, inspecting, all restaurants at least twice a year.
Nice. That's important.
They also have, the Narcan, packets at all the fire stations, the CCA, they've done training on that.
Okay,
they've
so
had
you
multiple
can go to
training.
any fire station, police station, or I presume town hall has Narcan as well?
I believe so. I assume so.
so
If the
if-
CCA has it, I assume
If
the
you need
town-
it in a real
yeah.
emergency. Of course.
What else? They had a very successful fall festival last year.
Yep.
They brought in over 1,500 people. They're looking to do another one.
Yeah, we were there, held it concurrent with the farmers
Anyways,
market.
I've got a nice write-up from Sue Rosa.
Yeah.
Happy to send it out
Oh, that'd be
to all the
yeah,
teams.
send it around, send
She
it
did a
around. I'd like to see
fantastic job,
what
which
she
gets
does.
into a lot more detail than me trying to summarize it quickly here.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. We have one set of minutes that,
I'll make a motion to approve.
A second.
in favor?
Aye.
We got 5 here.
Aye.
Aye. There's 1, 6,
Aye.
7.
Aye.
Okay, 7 zip. Okay. And next meetings are April 12th and April 26th. And now let me turn it over to Nancy for her last planning board motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Hey, your last motion passed.
Go out a winner.
Yep.
Yeah.